Hello, everyone. I think we should wait a couple more minutes to let anyone join us. But for now, till we're waiting, I'd like to represent myself. My name is Tatiana Shevchenko, and I'm an intern of ECG, and I'm an representative of the executive committee of the ECG as well. I'll be the meeting administrator today. Till we're waiting, I want to ask you to make sure your microphones are switched off. Please do not switch it on during the meeting unless it's not your turn to speak. So I think we can start, and please let me start by showing you a short presentation of projects of ECG. I will share my screen. Please make sure your microphone is turned off. Okay, here we are. Since 2015, the ECG has been uniting several thousands of creative people of the Eurasian region. It was made for creation of a platform of communicating and exchanging ideas and promoting the projects of creative people around the world. And right now we have several projects. You can see it on the screen. And let me start with the Ict Film Festival. The Ict Film Festival is aimed at promoting Eurasian cinema. We want to show the diversity of the culture of the countries of Eurasia and allow Eurasian filmmakers to get acquainted with professionals from around the world. Every year we hold a festival based on the Romford Film Festival. We are waiting for everyone in August in Romford. So the next project is the top 25 works of art of Eurasia, and this is new project for designers, artists, sculptors, and other representative of visual arts. And if you are not wanted to declare yourself at the international level, then this is a unique chance that cannot be missed. We plan to hold an exhibition in 50 cities of different countries. For more information, you can write email at the address that Maria will text into a chat. Another project is Voices of Friends Poetry Almanac. Will allow you not only to present your work to the world in English, but also to preserve memories of people close to you, or significant historical dates of your homeland as part of world history and literature. The idea for this kind of collection appeared in 1960, when Soviet writer Konstantin Simonov published a collection of translations of the Voices of Friends, which included poems from poets of Uzbekistan. 60 years on, we decided not only to review this wonderful idea, but also to give it a new sound. The uniqueness of the almanac is a daily calendar format where every page is allocated to each day. The almanac will be a great gift for an unforgettable celebration, anniversary, birthday, and etc. The almanac will be published in the UK by Hertfordshire Press as a part of the ECG book series. Eurasian Culture Week is another international festival that brings together creative people from around the world in London. Here, the fashion shows, art and book exhibitions and different events based on the ECW happens. This is a chance to you to show your projects to the international audience and get new experience and ideas. Open Eurasia is an international competition held by the Guild since 2012. This is one of the Guild's key projects. Over the years of the competition, new awards and new categories of participation have appeared. The festival has already united thousands of Eurasian literary figures and allowed them to publish their books in London. So you can see that the price is about $40 today. OCA magazine is a British magazine published in London quarterly since 2009. The magazine is the only English language publication in London that tells about the countries of Eurasia with an audience of more than 200,000 readers. To learn more about the possibility of posting your articles in OCA magazine, you can write email at the address that Maria texted into the chat. The Ecg book series is a unique project that allows the authors of Eurasia to publish their books in London. Each book is assigned the British ISBN, and it automatically falls into the legal deposit and the largest library in the world, the British Library. You can also present your book at one of the Ecg events. Also, in collaboration with the Cambridge International Press, we publish an academic series where we publish popular science books. As you can see on screen, this is a very important part of our job. And of course, our Creative Align meetings of the Eurasian Creative Guild in Zoom. Over the past month, the lifestyle of each of us has changed, with temporarily deprived us of the opportunity to hold creative meetings in real life. But the Eurasian Creative Guild does not give up. We found a solution to bring creative people together as we do today. At this difficult time for all of us, we need to support each other. So every week we have meetings for creative people from all over the world. Everyone has the opportunity to speak, express their opinion, or maybe share their stories. So every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Moscow time, we hold online meetings in Zoom on various subjects. Today, we met to discuss the subject, the People's City, and it will. This meeting will consist from 3 parts: moderator speech, speaker speeches, and an open microphone. If you are a speaker or you want to share your story, or you want to use the chance to answer the question, you can text the chat and we will give you this opportunity. And today, Maria Betts will help me to monitor the time of performances. She's also a representative of the Executive Committee of the Ecg. So, if you want to speak, you can text us, and you will have 5 minutes. And when there is a minute left until the end of your time, Maria texts you about it in the chat. Please be careful. If you get the performance limit, I'll have to switch off your microphone. So right now, I will show you my video. I hope that was okay. Does anybody hear me? Natalie, please, you can switch on your microphone.
Okay.
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Yes, that's great. And well, Let me tell about rules of the meeting a little bit more. I'd like to say that to take part in an open microphone, you need to write I want to speak in the chat. If your nickname is different from your actual name, please don't forget to write your real name as well. Otherwise, your application will not be considered. Okay? And the same thing works for questions. If you want to answer the question to Natalie, please don't forget to write your actual name. Okay? So let's welcome meeting moderator Natalie Bays, a co-founder of No Collective. Natalie, please.
So hi everyone. So as mentioned, my name is Natalie. I'm a co-founder of an arts collective called the No Collective. I also work with the CG quite a lot throughout the year. So if you recognise me, it might be from the Ecg Film Festival or Culture Week last year. So basically, I'm a cultural project manager, but I specialise more in properties and town development than anything else when it comes to arts and culture. So I can do events and kind of festivals and stuff like that. But my real interest is cities, where we live, how we live in them, and how as artists and creatives we can kind of put our stamp on the world and make sure that people are living the best way they can through cultural activity and things like that. So the reason I wanted to host a meeting about the People City is because, as you all know, we're in strange times at the moment with COVID-19 spreading across the world. At the moment, all of our cities are in different time zones within the COVID strike. So in the UK, for example, all of our shopping centres and retail opened on Monday, which is a big change. Up until that point, we were in lockdown. And actually, where I work at the moment, I work in a shopping centre, and it's really, really strange. From all of the months and months that I'd worked here before COVID-19, everything was busy and vibrant all the time. And now it's a little bit like working in an airport. It's very quiet, everyone's queuing, no one really talks to each other, and everyone's avoiding each other. So everything has really changed in these community gathering spaces that we have. So I guess my question, I'm going to tell you a bit more about some of the projects that I've done, but my question to you guys as creatives as we go through this conversation today is, firstly, who are you? What you used to do in normal society as an artist to be engaged in society. Secondly, what your city looks like now. So what situation your city is in. Are you still in lockdown? Are there people on the streets? Is it different to how it was? Do you think things are changing for the better or not? And then thirdly, what are your next moves as a creative? How are you going to use your poetry, writing skills, artistic endeavours to change your environment for the better and to continue on your path to kind of invigorating where we live? And then I also have a rhetorical question, which maybe we can pick up at the end when we have a conversation, which is what is more important within a city? Is it the architecture and the space, so the built environment, or is it the people that live within the city and how they move throughout the city? So there's a couple of people on the chat, so I just wanted to say hi to Michael, Duncan and Ulebek. So hi guys, hopefully we will get to hear a little bit more from you later. I'm going to be really cheeky in a little while as well. We have a friend of mine, Gary Hunter, who has joined us. He is also based in the UK, but he has worked internationally on projects that cover all of these bases. So I'm going to ask him to speak a little bit about a particular project that he thinks is really applicable to the theme today. So just to prepare you, Gary, I will be asking you some questions a little bit later. Okay, so back onto the questions and a little bit more about my art practice and the No Collective. So I'm going to share my screen with you to show you some of the projects that I have done in the past. Oh, my screen sharing is disabled at the moment. Would you mind having a look at that? Don't know. Sorry, technical difficulties trying to share my screen.
Yeah, wait a second.
Sorry, we're getting there.
Yes, we get it.
Okay. So I'm just going to share my screen, which essentially is the No Collective website. I'm not going to do any kind of fancy presentation here. So I just wanted to show you some of the things that I've done in the past to relate to creative and cultural practice within towns and cities. So I'm going to start with Architecture Week. So hopefully you'll be able to see here a lovely small town created by local members of the community of the borough in London, which I live in Havering. So this programme is something that we created in the town as lots of new developments started happening. So in the town where I live, all of a sudden there were these huge buildings going up. We have a housing crisis in the majority of London, and we live in quite the far east of London, which meant up until last year, housing development hadn't really hit us. And then last year, about 4 or 5 developments of 500 flats and houses started turning up all around our town, and people were really upset about it. They weren't upset that people were all of a sudden being able to find homes. They were upset that there was big change. And the exciting thing as an art practitioner is that actually what culture and creativity and art practice does, it is a really good communication tool. So what we did to try and make people more comfortable about what was happening was basically to tell them, but to tell them in a fun and engaging way. So over the course of a week, we held educational programs for young people in the local colleges. And then we held some educational programs for children in schools, and then held some public consultation with people about how they would like to see their town change. And then this led into these pictures, which you can see now, which essentially was we invited children to come and kind of build their town. On the floor is a map, and it's to scale of all of the places in the town, and you could come along with your family and build a house and have a conversation about what was going to change in your town. And this was really strong for just sharing with people how things are changing and how positive change can be made through them as well. So telling them how to get engaged in kind of local politics, you know, if they don't like the look of a building going up, or they think that it's going to ruin the landscape if a building goes in a certain place, they can join different programs and start to shout about whether or not they're happy with that. So that's one project that we were doing. And then from my personal background, I just want to show you another project that I did. So actually at the moment I'm speaking to you from a shopping centre. I was hired here a couple of years ago to help with community and cultural projects here. I'm still here now, which is why I know it's very strange in shopping centres. But my first project was actually working on this one that you see now. It's called The Quadrant. And basically in this shopping arcade, there were no customers. Half of the shops were shut, and people were concerned that nobody was going in there. So we were hired to do a cultural regeneration, which meant changing all of the signage, bringing new shops in, helping all of the local businesses as well, making sure that they were branded correctly, that they were marketing themselves. We created events. So a really community focused way of bringing shoppers back. So bringing people into the shopping centre, not necessarily just to buy things, but also to come and experience being in a place where culture and creativity is part of everyday life. You know, you could walk through one day and there could be some jazz playing, or you could walk in the next day and there would be a book launch. You know, we did all of these really fun and exciting things. And actually, the shops that decided to join us were young, cool shops. So we had a barber move in that had a really good ethos about wanting to have a really creative brand for his shop. We had a music studio move in. So this kind of change in the way of thinking of how a shopping centre should be run and managed created almost like a hub for people to come and experience more than just shopping when they went to their shopping centre. And this is what I've been working on in like my short career, which is trying to change the way that properties and buildings work. So actually we're using community and culture and creativity as a tool to really make our economy strong through all of the right means, basically. So, you know, we're not forcing people to buy loads of stuff. We're asking people to come and join us in creating something new and in, you know, buying products for them that make sense, and, you know, just trying to make the shopping centre experience less about just going and buying, but also experiencing as well. And people prefer to shop in places like that. I'm sure lots of big businesses would tell you otherwise, but actually from my experience of working in the town in a couple of shopping centres, people want to go to a shopping centre that they can feel that they have some kind of community link to. So this was the shopping centre. I can show you after we finished, we did a big heritage project on the signage, and basically we took it back to how it looked in the 1930s. So we changed from this kind of ugly green thing going on here to this beautiful signage that lights up. And for those of you that enjoy architecture, this is very, very Art Deco. And yeah, this was the inside. So this was our first Christmas that we were open with our regeneration. So we installed all of this signage for every shop. We helped all of the shops make new frontages. So you can see on the right, Vicky's Chippy. So we made that signage for her. She was a new business. She couldn't really afford to make changes. So instead what we did, we got some local students from the art college, and they all came in and between them basically redesigned lots of local businesses to make them fun and smart, so that people would want to shop there and people would want to go in there and meet them. Just to move on to, I'm going to skip a bit because I'm going to go back and then introduce you to Gary. The last project that I wanted to talk about was what my plans are next. So obviously we're in this situation now where people are shopping, but nobody is going near each other, obviously for health concerns. We're not really doing events coming together. So we have begun as the No Collective a new project called Our Nest, which is half a digital project, so a bit like what we're doing here now on Zoom. We're communicating through online avenues. However, the difference with this is that we've identified that not everyone in our local area actually has those facilities. We have in Havering, where I work, we have a high level of digital poverty, so people that can't afford to be online. So in addition to some online programs, so we're hiring artists to make videos to be inspired at home and to be inspired without having to meet up or go to events. So as well as that, we're also running a program where you can write in and we will post activities to you and they can be posted back and we can use the phone and all of these other ways of communication to ensure that art and creativity can still get to people in their homes without having to use digital means. So this is the real innovation really that we've found in terms of trying to cover all bases. We'll also be doing a mail out project called Home Inside Out. So some architects that we work with are creating a magazine about how to use your home as almost like a blank canvas. So change things in your home to feel comfortable and inspired and things like this. So I'm going to go back to my second question, which was what do our cities look like now? Because I was involved a little while ago with some street art projects. So this is a street art project called Colour in Romford. And this was a way to really bring art in a bold, physical way to our high street, which was quite drab and grey and raining because it's London. So yeah, I just want to show you this, but then I'm gonna pass over to Gary because Gary is possibly the king of graffiti, but also has a really cool project which is about street names, which he said that he would like to talk about. So Gary, I'm going to pass over to you if that's okay.
Okay, can everybody hear me all right? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Oh, you can, okay.
You can
yes,
start.
I know Natalie through a project I'm doing in East London, which is setting up a community pub on a very deprived housing estate. And I have commissioned a lot of large street art projects. But what I really want to talk about today is a project I did on the public housing estate that I grew up on in the 1970s. I was fascinated when I was growing up the meaning of the names, because all the streets were named after social reformers who were writers, but I didn't really know anything about these writers. And strangely enough, as the heavy industry started to close down in the late 70s and the early 80s, somebody started naming all the streets after dystopian writers like Orwell and Huxley. So 30 years later, with the help of the Arts Council on a Cultural Spring project, which was part of one of the Creative People in Places funds, I went back to this estate and asked people who were residents there to choose quotes from these writers that meant something to them in their lives. And they didn't know anything about these writers, and I didn't when I was growing up. And then I would photograph these people with an item from their life that meant something to it. It had some element of hope. So then what we did was we photographed them with this piece, and then we superimposed the quotes over the top. So it was anything from Austen to Dickens to George Bernard Shaw, and people were given free rein to actually write their own poems as well. So it was kind of bringing poetry into a very deprived area that really had no exposure to that whatsoever. Then the series was selected to be shown at the Global Space of Culture, which is in the Sao Paulo region of Brazil. So there, it was part of a project called The Landscape Unbuilt. So there was similar things going on there in the favelas, where people who lived there were naming the streets after the butchers and the people, you know, who did something for the community, who were really part of it, who were still alive. So it was an interesting juxtaposition between the two, really, of you know, looking at historical writers, but also contemporary people in Brazil. So it was then published in the Journal of Arts and Communities, which is a peer-reviewed academic publication. So I think it's important to sort of get the work out there on a global level, so everybody else can find out what's going on. Not keeping it, you know, local all the time, starting very local, but then getting it out so it can be disseminated. Did that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Would you be able would you be able to tell us a little bit more about how the CPP engagement worked? Because actually that's something that I think is really innovative in terms of Arts Council funding in the UK and getting like local people involved with stuff.
Yeah, that's at the very core of it, really. I mean, it was all to do with bringing art to places that had never ever experienced it. So a bit like what I'm doing on the Aberfeldy Estate, that's kind of an extension really of the project. But people were very wary that art wasn't for them, you see. That was the first hurdle to overcome. But I think the fact that I actually came from that area, and I still knew people who lived there, that sort of made such a difference, rather than some artists coming from another place would have found it much more difficult. And once it did get going, I was given another fund to bring street artists over from Brazil, Canada, New Zealand. And then what we did was we responded to the next estate, which is named after painters like Titian, you know, and then they painted all of these massive murals everywhere. The most satisfying one was on my old school. So one of the streets where I grew up was named after Lewis Carroll. So we did a big Alice in Wonderland ultraviolets painted mural, which at dusk the UV lights would come in and reveal another part of the story. And that was really satisfying, because when I was at school 30 years earlier, I actually got caned by the headmaster for doing graffiti at the school. So it was kind of, you know, it was really nice to go back there 30 years later and make a massive statement on the side of the school from a personal point of view.
So on that note, in terms of rebellion, do you think that artists need to be rebellious to be able to reclaim their local town and space?
Yes, because I mean, the advertisers can just put anything they want on a billboard. Nobody questions that. There's no actual self-expression in that whatsoever. That's just selling your product, isn't it? So I think there has to be a balance between, say, like the giant chihuahua we put on a 9-story building in Poplar. You know, people were saying, well, why is that there? And I said, well, it's next to the Isle of Dogs and it's facing Barking. That's why there's a giant dog on the building.
You know what, actually, I've seen that dog and I didn't know you were responsible for it. I've even had selfies next to that dog.
I photographed the dog, and then the two mural artists transposed it, so every little hair was there, really, you know. But it was about making something like Poplar, which was perceived to be very small, like a chihuahua, next to Canary Wharf, which of course is big, you know, centre of commerce, and then saying Poplar is here, you know, we're a giant chihuahua. There was something in that as well. So I think humour is very important in art as well, you know, not being serious all the time.
And just looking at a couple of my questions. So for you, as a closing statement, is it the people or the place that is more beautiful in the city?
Well, I think it's the built environment that reflects people's behaviour. So if you grow up in a concrete jungle, you're going to be misbehaving more than if you grow up in a leafy suburb. But I think it's down to the individual as well and how they relate to where they grow up. And I think street names are incredibly important, because some of the reasons are lost in the mists of time, you know, and that's something I'm really fascinated with, is the original place naming of where we are. And now I'm in Rome, you see, we're refurbing a big 2.5-acre woodland site, which has got to do not just with, you know, being part of the Roman Empire, but the Etruscans and going way back to that. But also there's the recent history of Italy in there as well. And I'm fascinated really by this area, which is a sort of island that's still part of Rome, but it's 40 kilometers away. And I don't know why it's got this postcode that connects it to central Rome. It's a mystery to me. So that's something I really want to explore here. Is that okay?
Sorry, I've just gone a bit quiet. Thank you, Gary. That's really interesting. And hopefully when we come to the conversation at the end of the talk today, yes, I'll be able to ask you more questions, basically.
Thanks for the opportunity to talk.
You know everything. But I think in terms of my speech, Oh no, it's really interesting. Thank you, Gary. And thank you for joining us from Rome as well. That's really exciting. So going back to the questions before we move on to our participant speeches, the questions that I had that I was interested in people's opinion on were, what were we doing before COVID-19 happened to inhabit our cities? So what is your art practice, and what kind of work do you make? just a little bit of information on what your city looks like now, what situation you're in. It can be a city or a town or a local village, just wherever you're based. The third question was, what is your next move? So if you have any upcoming projects that you're excited about, that you want to speak about, we'd really like to hear about those. And also that question of, is it the people or the place that is most beautiful about a city? Or do you think they're as equal as each other? So if I pass back and mute myself, and then we can get some intros of who has requested to speak. Thank you for listening to me, everyone. I'm sure I'll come back during question time.
Sure, thank you, Natalie. So we have several people who want to speak. First of all, let me ask Donna Grupas and Margarita Mikhailova, ECG members, to share their story to answer the questions. Please, Donna and Margarita, are you here? You can switch on your microphones.
Okay, yeah. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, you are here.
Okay, so thank you for giving us an opportunity to talk on this meeting. As you said, we are both members of the guild. Aldona she's here now, and yeah, you can find her on the picture. She's a nurse, professional nurse, but also a writer and a blogger. And I'm a professional musician, orchestra conductor. We both based in Midland. So Aldona lives in Wolverhampton. I live permanently in Birmingham. But unfortunately now I'm out of UK. That was my personal decision, because my work was totally and completely destroyed, my working opportunities during this time. So I had to find myself another opportunities to stay at some other place. So, but anyhow, why we were motivated to be speak today, because we wanted to tell about the club, the art club, which we founded just before the Corona time. So we called it Albion Art Club. You can find it on Facebook. Yeah, you can find it via Aldona's personal information and my information as well. And I think we wanted to tell about the club because from our point of view, it's really important. I mean, the virus time will be over sooner or later. Virus will gone. But what worries me, it's already has been mentioned today, by Natalie, for instance, that the cities looks pretty strange now. People are avoiding contacts, yeah, and this is going to sit in our heads for a long time, and that's what I don't like. Now we're going to work with our club after the Corona time, because we want to contribute people are coming together again. The people are creating art space, yeah, inside the cities, which is very important, yeah, for me. And our projects will be more like inside music and literature. That's what we want to do, to combine the music and literature. That's why it is very important for us to keep a contact to guild, and we value this contact very highly. So that's basically what I wanted to say, because sadly enough, what is going now at the moment, yeah, I hope as a musician, what I want personally, it's simply people to come back to concert halls, back to galleries, back to museums, yeah, and this has to happen, because from my point of view, the city is nothing without people. The city is empty place. I don't remember now who of very, very famous English writer said that there is no worse scene as an abandoned house. And abandoned city is an abandoned house. City without people is nothing. So we need to use our power now as much as we can to to get people back together as soon as possible. That's, I think, will be more important from my point of view, even more important than fighting the virus itself. So yeah, we will be very happy if we will get more contact, art contact, professional contact around London and Birmingham, because we both are based in Midland, and I work personally in London, Birmingham and Cardiff, and Aldona work in Wolverhampton, and we will be very happy to introduce our projects, our projects for the future. Thank you.
Hello, Aldona, you can speak.
No, thank you, no. Right.
Okay, so thank you very much for your story. It's important, I think. So Natalie, have you any comments?
My first comment is I'm really pleased that you're setting up something and you've kept with it, even though you've probably set up an arts group at the worst possible time. So a big congratulations that you're continuing, because actually, you know, these things are really hard and it takes a lot of energy to start something. So to be able to keep the vision in sight and in mind, even when you've had to move away from your home because of personal circumstances, you know, that's really brave and really commendable. So I really hope that you'll be very successful in your project, and thank you for sharing your group on Facebook to us. So I'm hoping that everyone will be happy to click into that and give you a like and a share, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what will come of that as well. So as soon as this finishes, I'm going to log on and find and like your page and follow you and probably send you some more questions.
Thank you, Natalie.
So that's great. We have a request from one of our participants. This is Robert Crane. So Robert, you can share your story and tell us about your book.
Oh, thank you very much. My name's Robert Crane, and I'm French and American. So what you're hearing is the American side. I live in Paris, and we also have a country house in a village in the south of France near Bordeaux. Paris is where we've been locked down since the 17th of March, that's when the lockdown started in France, and we haven't really moved. The lockdown ended on the 2nd of June, but still we tend to stay at home. What we noticed in our brief forays into the streets to buy food primarily was that there were, what should I say, wild animals in the streets, which is quite a change for Paris. We live in the Latin Quarter, and going to the grocery store, I crossed a couple of ducks who were walking in the other direction, so that was unusual. It was strangely quiet. We had almost no cars and very few people in the streets, so that was nice too. In the countryside, the house is in a medieval part of a village that's a walled village, and that part of France has been spared. The coronavirus really didn't reach there. So our friends tell us that their life has gone on pretty much as before, with no real complications. There's been only one case of coronavirus. As concerns what I did before and what I will be doing in the future, I've worked in some 60 different countries, and my work usually was negotiating for a large management education group here in France. But I also teach, and what I teach is cross-cultural. That is the differences in the ways of thinking in different countries. And most recently, I've taught that in Beijing, so in China, in Japan, in Estonia, and just last year in Tashkent, at Tashkent State University of Economics in Uzbekistan. And I've been invited to return to Tashkent to teach in a different institution, This one is both Uzbek and South Korean. So my interest centers around cultures, but cultures as applied both to economics and to management. I'm publishing a series of books with Palgrave Macmillan in London. Palgrave Macmillan in my field, international business, is #1 in the world, and they're really very, very good. There are never any mistakes at all in the books. And I've proposed to Palgrave to bring out a book on Central Asia. They've agreed to letting me publish another book on Central Asia. So I'm delighted, but I'm finding that the real problem is finding people who can actually help me with the chapters. I can't know all the cultures, and I certainly don't know all the cultures. I do know how to do the books. And for all of my books, I get together a group of colleagues who are experts on their country, both for the culture and the economy and the management practices. And then they submit text to me, which I edit, and I give them an outline of what each chapter should be. The chapters contain a first part, which is a thumbnail history of the country, without talking about kings and queens or wars, but talking about the events, which may be very minor, which changed the way of thinking in that country. An example might be in Germany, the Battle of Teutoburg Forest, which most Germans don't know, but which took place at the end of the Roman Empire. The German tribes trapped 3 Roman legions in a forest near the Danube River and annihilated the 3 legions. At that time, there were only 17 legions in all of the Roman Empire. It was a triumph for the Germanic tribes, and it gave a militaristic set to the German way of thinking for the next 1,500, 2,000 years. That's the first part. The second part is a description of how this interplays with management practices in the country, and a description of the economy, and then finally examples of companies from this country which work with the outside world. So that's what I'm doing. And I suppose what I'm asking for now, and I know I'm asking for, is help with targeting authors from the 5 countries in Central Asia. In Uzbekistan, I've got contacts, but still it's difficult to find authors. And the authors should be able to write in English if possible. If they have to write in Russian, then I can have it translated, but preferably in English. And secondly, they know the 3 fields, that is the culture, the management, and the economy. So that's who I am and what I do.
And Robert, actually, we have a time limit, so could you say everything else and answer other questions in 1 minute, please?
In 1 minute? Yes,
Yes.
Please help me. I really do need contacts, and the publisher has agreed to bring out the book. It's a great reference on anyone's CV. Palgrave Macmillan is the best in the world. I'll stop there. That was less than a minute, I think.
So I think we probably have a lot of people in the group that would be able to help you. And perhaps if the members that are writers here wouldn't mind getting in touch with anyone that isn't here as well, that might be interested in Robert's opportunity there. Just a question,
Yes.
Robert, if we don't have any specialists on management, like cultural management or the culture of management from different societies, are you still looking to talk to people from different countries in Central Asia about general cultural difference?
Yes, absolutely. The main thrust of the work is the culture, but since it's Palgrave Macmillan, there's also an orientation toward management. So I could find perhaps someone else who would know that, or perhaps derive from the culture what the management consequences might be.
That's perfect. Also, Robert, if you wouldn't mind putting your contact details in the chat so people can get directly in touch with you, and also any information you have on where we can find your previous literature, anything that you've written before, website or Amazon.
Amazon. They're all on Amazon under cross-cultural management, and there are 5 of them in my name, so they're fairly easy to find. So cross-cultural management, Robert Crane on Amazon.
That's perfect, thank you. And such an interesting topic as well. I don't think I've ever met anyone that is working within those realms before. So yeah, that's really fun. Yeah.
So thank you, Robert. This is very great. We have several more speeches. So I think it's time to introduce you, Anastasia. This is our intern of Ecg. So Anastasia, are you here? Anastasia Savelyeva.
Yes.
Yes, Anastasia has some technical problems with sharing her screen, so I will try to do it for her. Okay. Do you hear sound?
Yes.
Great.
Today I would like to tell you a little about the atmosphere of my native creative city, Irkutsk. If you didn't know, the city is located in the heart of Siberia. It's near of Lake Baikal. In Siberia, most of the year it's dark and gray. You know it. And which is why we have so many creative projects and graffiti on the streets. In addition, on the basis of two art galleries on the city, communities of creative people who change the face of the city and their thoughts for the better with the help of the art. You can show in the video that epidemic, it have no effect on art in my city. It's a new festival for artists will now be organized on the island Olkhon. It's Lake Baikal. And you just have to come and you will feel it yourself. It's atmosphere of art. You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Anastasia. So could you give an answer to Natalie's questions? Anastasia, are you here?
Yes.
Great. Try to give an answer to Natalie's questions.
I don't know.
Could you maybe tell us with your project how that is going to enhance kind of engagement with people? So in Siberia, what is the situation at the moment? Have you been affected too much by lockdown or COVID-19? And if so, with your project, do you feel that that's something that will bring people together more and kind of be a really good improvement to maybe the situation that we have globally at the moment?
This festival is take part in August, and in Siberia now we have a little epidemic situation, and it will be okay with festival.
That's great. I guess you're probably in a completely different situation in Siberia to some of us that are living in much bigger cities, kind of in really populous places. One thing that I would like to ask though is if you wouldn't mind in the chat, maybe giving us a link to a website where we can find out more about your festival, and if
yes,
we wanted to participate as well.
Yeah.
Yes, I think Anastasia wrote it in the chat, so we can hear a couple more of participants. We have one more participant. This is Anna Larry. She is a member of Ecg. So Anna, are you here? No, I think I don't see Anna. Please, maybe Bajana Krasnogir. Bajana, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
So can you tell us about your vision of COVID-19?
Yeah, sure, definitely. So does everyone hear me well? I guess so. Okay, great. Today I'd like to talk about how the art itself was expressed during the COVID-19 in an international scale. How cities around the world have adjusted to lockdown, how maybe they create something new, graffiti on the street, and so on. So, as many of you know, the COVID-19 crisis had hit nearly every major sector of the economy, but as well the local arts community too. With limited movement, almost all museums, theaters, libraries, movies, and other tourist places are closed. And the crisis has struck the cultural life. The financial change stems from the fact that many cultural workers and artists have lost their source of income. Besides, the cancellation of all activities caused hardship for small and medium-sized businesses. I'd love to also bring up the fact that nearly every art-based event have been put it off. For instance, from author appearances and theater productions to music concerts and festivals and so on. So within the visual arts community, local artists and gallery owners are being forced to adapt to entirely unfamiliar circumstances. Some galleries are doing their best to come up with those new formats and to continue to remain engaged with a public that has no choice but stay home. I guess everyone have noticed how mass media dramatically involved in our lives. And even now, we're using Zoom, we're sitting in our homes. Unfortunately, we cannot meet up together. We cannot get together and see each other, hug each other, shake hands, and just be having that human connections. But I hope that it is going to be permanently. So I'd like to share with my screen. I will show you the pictures. You can see, right? Yes. So can you see?
Yes.
Those are the pictures. I will skip the part of mentioning names and places on the world. I just wanted to share with you the artworks that have been produced during the COVID-19 by artists from all over the world. Despite this, many creative workers from all countries in the region maintain a positive attitude and proactively participate in online activities to transmit their creation digitally and communicate with the rest of the society. The governments are also trying to help from the policy level by finding solutions to provide better access to culture and public information, and by accelerating the process of social insurance for artists and informal workers in the cultural section. So as you may see, most of the pictures are taken on the street. And in Panama, for example, the Ministry of Culture has launched the program which offers cultural content through the mass media and social networks. In addition, the Ministry of many countries have expressed support for groups of professionals in the art and culture of the country that have been affected by the crisis by ensuring that these people and their families as well having access to food, medicine, and basic services such as water, electricity, health, and internet services. So that's it, I guess. Thank you so much for your attention. It's been delighted to see everyone.
Thank you, Božena. Natalie, please switch on your microphone.
So I have a question for you. My question is, do you think, because of the struggle of artists, that actually there will be some amazing things that will come out of this? I mean, from my experience and the experience of places in England and the UK, is that when there's extreme poverty and when artists have nothing, actually they create 10 times as many brilliant things. I'm not saying it's necessarily a good thing that artists don't have money, but do you think that artists are kind of creating even more now that this crisis has happened?
Jana, can you answer? Božena? I think it's some technical problem.
That's okay. We can leave that as a rhetorical question. People can think about that themselves.
Okay.
Sorry, I was mute all this time. I'm so sorry. Okay, I will repeat. Thank you, Natalie, for your question. I was just talking to myself and I realized no one hear me. Anyway, I think during this time in lockdown, this time has forced everyone not only to adjust, but also come up with some new ideas, and by creating, for example, maybe a photographer has started to take not only photos, maybe they start to write, or vice versa. Maybe poets and authors, maybe they come up with something new. Maybe they start their career in new cultural path. So I think all this, in general speaking, I think living in lockdown and all people have realized that online interactions, they're not just fulfilling as real communication. I think interacting is being in this space that makes people happy when they can, as I mentioned before, having conversation in real life, having connections, and maybe sharing ideas. I think that time has taught everyone, and not maybe everyone, but I hope most of the people, to appreciate human connections. I hope I answered your question. I hope so.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. And apologies, we couldn't hear you to start with. I just wanted to say, actually, thank you for your broad and kind of concise way of looking at the international situation, as well as just the local environments, because I know that from my local community, exactly that has happened. Lots of artists have lost work and haven't had a financial backup. And even though in the UK we're very good at putting things in place to make sure people get money, actually artists have fallen through the cracks because we always work in strange ways anyway. So yeah, I'm really pleased that that's been picked up on during this conversation. So thank you for that.
So that's great. The next one is Jana's speech. Jana, are you here with us?
Yes, I'm here. Let me
yes, Jana is an intern in Ecg. So Jana, please.
Hello, everyone. I'm really glad to talk to everyone today and to join this lovely conversation. I would first answer one of the questions regarding the situation in my hometown. I'm living in Kaliningrad, which is in the western part of Russia, and the situation is getting much better than before. Actually, yesterday I was in the city center and I was in the shopping mall, and I was really surprised that most of the shops are opened and only restaurants are closed. And there are not so many people, but people are still there. They all wear masks. They all wear gloves, and they queue to enter every store, because every store allows a limited number of people. But people take their time and they queue, and it's really nice to see that people obey the rules, even though in Russia sometimes people don't like the rules, but this time they do obey the rules. And I think because all the shops and sports centers, offices, everything is opening gradually, and people still obey the rules. So I think the situation will get better. So this is my answer to one of your questions. And actually for this time, I prepared a presentation which is not connected with the COVID-19, but it's connected with the city and art. When I heard that this meeting will be about cities and art, I immediately recalled my trip to one of the cities in Malaysia, which I really enjoyed, and I decided that I would share it with you guys. So I will share my screen. I hope it works. Okay, do you see it?
Yes, that's key.
Okay, let me present. All right, so Ipoh, the city of artists, this is how I call it for the reasons that you will see very soon. This city is here, kind of in the center of Malaysia, even though this is not the whole country in this map, but it's the third largest city in Malaysia, even though it's not the most popular one. Many tourists just avoid it, or they don't know about it. I don't know if all of you know about the city, but I strongly recommend to learn out about it. So why I love this city so much? Because it's very lovely. It has a lot of artworks everywhere, murals, street art, the way you want to call it. And this is one of the examples. I also forgot to tell that actually my hobby is photography and another hobby is traveling. And when I combine these two hobbies, the result is a lot of pictures of different traveling spots. And in this presentation, I want to share my pictures. So this is one of the examples. Here's another example. I think this one is so artistic and it looks fabulous with drawing cars, but also real cars. And you can see how big is it. It covers like the whole wall of a huge building. Here is another one, another fabulous drawing, which covers almost the whole building. And another one, this one, it kind of gives Chinese atmosphere. It's really cool and very realistic. A few more examples. These are just random streets, you know, these are not sightseeing spots you won't really find it on touristic maps, but you can just walk around and look around and see drawings randomly. It's so cool. And you can see how well they are integrated into the streets, into the architecture. And the architecture is very old, and it seems like nobody takes care about it, but the drawings just fit it so well. And here's another example. With the art and decorations, it looks so beautiful, at least for me. And also, okay, so why I call it the City of Artists? It's not only because it has a lot of artworks, but also because it gives a lot of inspiration for artists. For example, for photographers, people like me, because when I saw this kind of architecture, I was so inspired by this, and I really wanted to capture every building, every street. It was so inspirational. And here are just some more examples of streets with the lovely decorations. And it's so thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed my presentation and my photos. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Can I just say that your photography is beautiful, by the way? So thank you for sharing that with us. And I've never heard of this place in Malaysia before, and it is stunning. And I again, just picking up on some of the questions that I've been asking, it's really nice to see that you have kind of crossed the realization of what is kind of intentional artwork, so all of the street murals, and then kind of what is unintentional. So some of these restaurants that have just painted their facade green because it's probably good for business, attaches to a brand, but actually makes it an environment that is, as you say, a city of artists, because you have these local people that are making big and bold changes to the places that they own without thinking about it, but just making it a really, really nice environment for people to travel around.
Yeah, absolutely. They do care about some buildings like this one, but if you look at this, you can see that these buildings are really old, but they look fabulous on their own way. Like no one takes care about them, but they are just so charming and, you know, looks great for photography and
yeah, I think that there's something interesting, isn't there, with like when people paint their houses and then leave it, and actually you get these layers of time that are kind of rubbed out of each of the crevices of the building. So you have your blue windows there, and they're kind of aged and yellow, but that makes it even more beautiful. And you can kind of see that with some of the street murals. You were saying that they're kind of understated in a lot of the places, but you can also see a journey of the time that they were painted. So you have the car mural, which is obviously a graphic artist that has painted that, and it's very stylized and placed in a really correct place for that, and that's amazing. But you also have there was the boy that was with the man. Was he
this one? Or
yeah, the one where you had the three pictures together underneath,
this one.
And it's kind of eroded away, but you can still see that there was a time where that was painted and it was fresh and it was new, but it's just kind of like this incidental action. You know, somebody has painted something and it was in the moment and it was about the moment, and that will last a long time, and gradually time will change it as well. So yeah, I'm really inspired by all of this, and I really want to visit now as well. Cool. So hopefully lockdown will not last that much longer and I can go flying again.
Thank you very much, and I hope you can travel there someday.
Definitely. And do you have any personal website or blog that you put your photography on that we could look at?
Yes, I do.
Would you mind sharing in our chat, and then we can...
Yeah, sure.
Look. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is great. So we're going to our time limit. I see that here is John Farndon. This is the chairman of Ecg. John, I hope this conversation was interesting to you. Can you give some comments to us?
Absolutely. Yes, it was absolutely fascinating. So thank you very much for everybody for participating. It's just wonderful to see so many people contributing. But I think, as Margarita said earlier, it's a very difficult time for artists that we're entering into now. But it's a very difficult time for everyone. But one of the things I've noticed personally is that actually we are getting in the UK, we're in danger of getting an increasing divide between elite artists and everybody else. And that's always been the case. But one of the things is that some people have wonderful access to social media and equipment and so on, and many others don't. And live performances have been the way that a whole variety of different artists have made contact with their people, with their audiences, and it's actually really important that we cultivate that. So I think there are kind of many positive things that have come out of the COVID crisis, because one of the things that I've noticed is that the streets of London, and I think most other people, I live in the centre of London, and they've been beautiful and quiet and filled with nature. So we've got this odd dichotomy of a tragic world and beautiful streets with nature flourishing. But it's interesting, I was involved in Extinction Rebellion, which is the climate change movement, and last April, streets in London were locked down, and they were filled with people singing and birds singing as well. And people, instead of feeling that this was a crisis when you walked in, not just people involved, they just thought, this is how cities should be. And I hope that the lesson that we learn from this tragedy is that we need to change our way of life, and life can be a lot better and needs to be a lot less toxic. We need to provide spaces for poets that, like the ones that Gary mentioned earlier, to flourish in. And I hope that organizations like this can bring people together, and we can start spreading this movement amongst our local communities and around the world. So I just want to say thank you everybody for joining us, and I hope that you'll be back and we can do more in future. Thank you. And thank you to Natalie Bays for chairing it, and to Tatiana for pulling it all together. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I see that we have one more participant. Oh, it's from Gary. So please, you can speak if you want. No?
Oh, sorry, what was that? I missed that. What do you want me to say?
Yeah, I've seen your comment in the chat.
Ah, right. I did a lot of comments. Which one in particular? Sorry, which one in particular?
Have you something to add to this as one of speakers?
No, I think I've said everything. I'd like to give somebody else a chance who hasn't said anything, because I think I've said enough. Okay.
So Natalie, please, can you make some conclusion?
I'd be happy to. I've been writing notes all the way through this from everyone's comments, and I really enjoyed, John, your closing speech as well. So I feel like we should have just ended on you, but I'm going to continue anyway because I like the sound of my own voice. But I think what you said about people in the cities with birds singing actually is so apt of where we should be moving on to. We have, as creative reflectors, enjoyed the time alone to think about how we can improve things and how we can change our cities and get some energy inside us to kind of run at it when we get back, with art groups and with festival projects and all of these amazing things. And I just hope that when lockdown is finally lifted, we can all move together again. And in terms of the ECG, you know, one of the best things for me is not just the meeting online, because we do that quite a lot, and there's a lot of cross emails and WhatsApps and stuff like that. The main enjoyment of ECG is meeting up at festivals, at the book festivals, at the culture festivals, at the film festivals, and that needs to continue because that that is the foundation of why we're in it. So without that, I don't know where we would be. So I hope everyone agrees that we just need to kind of sit tight, conserve our energy, make big plans, and then apply them within the end of the year.
Natalie, thank you so much for moderation. So now we have a time limit. Unfortunately, we couldn't give a chance to anyone to talk today, but we have such meetings every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Here in Zoom conference. So you can join us every Wednesday, and once a month we have English speaking meeting. So please, if you want to follow us, if you want to know about what meeting we plan, you can join us on Facebook. So Maria, as well as I can see, sent a message on our page on Facebook. So you can follow us always. And I'm glad to say that in some moment of meeting, we've got almost 30 participants from UK, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Israel, Belarus, Germany, Pakistan, France, Norway, and United States. So it was very multicultural meeting, and thank you so much for your time. We appreciate your attention and the fact you found the time at the middle of the day. So thank you so much. It was a very interesting chat, and as Natalie said, that this is a platform for communication, and we were glad to see every one of you. So have a nice day. Goodbye.